Hello and welcome to the Arc Woman podcast. This is an exploration of womankind. Here we discuss what it is to be a woman in the modern world while utilizing ancient and modern modalities in tandem to create a bounty of health for the body, mind and spirit. G'day everyone and welcome back. Before we jump in, I just wanted to have a quick shout out to our sponsors. The first one being Drift Surf Co., which is a project of One Day Org. I love this company. I've worked with this company. I love them. Anna and Jody are a mother-daughter team, and what they make are these gorgeous yoga mats and rugs. They are made ethically. They don't have any toxic materials, and they design them themselves. If you wanted to buy one, I would highly recommend it. I have 2 rugs. I take them with me everywhere. If you're watching this episode, you'll see me and Lucy sitting on it. They're durable, they're high quality, and they're just beautiful. Every time I have my red tents, I put them down. I get so many compliments on them. This is where I get them from. Go to driftsurfco.org, and if you wanted to get a little discount code, use woman10 at checkout. Alongside this, I just wanted to give a beautiful shout out to Creation Cacao. If you're watching this episode, you're probably watching Lucy and I sitting down having a fat chat with a beautiful fatty ceremonial cacao. If you don't know what ceremonial cacao is pure chocolate. It is pure fat and it has huge amounts of minerals and other micronutrients inside of it, which are incredibly good for women's health. If you are waking up and you're addicted to your caffeine, so you need your coffee or your matcha or your green tea or your chai to wake up in the morning, and you're in cycling age, I'm telling you the bad news. And the bad news is that's not good for you. But the good news is that ceremonial cacao is. Since we are producing huge amounts of hormones in our cycling years, and cacao is really rich in those things, it seems like a great answer to a problem that needs to be solved in women. We don't need to be constantly stimulated, and I love Creation Cacao because it is low in caffeine. It is still quite stimulating and awakening and heart-opening as well. So if you wanted to try Creation Cacao, you can go to their website, which is creationcacao.com.au, and at checkout you can get 10% off with my discount code ARCWOMAN10. G'day everyone and welcome back to the Arc Woman podcast. Thanks for being here. I wanted to introduce you to what we're going to be talking about and who we're talking to before we start this episode. Endometriosis is what we're going to be talking about today, and it is a very misunderstood and mal-studied disease that is quite just horrible. If I'm going to be straight from what women's health, it's painful. And everything we're talking about in this episode could be applicable to you, but I don't want anyone making any rash decisions on their supplementation, their nutrition, and their lifestyle regime without actually consulting a practitioner first. Because of the nature of endometriosis, which you will find in this podcast, it is so case by case. There is no one size fits all. So although we are both quite educated in this, and Lucy is incredible at what she does, I don't want anyone taking anything on without actually consulting a health practitioner first. So find a naturopath, find a health practitioner that specializes in women's health that can help you make these changes so you don't have any fallout, so you don't make your symptoms worse and more debilitating than they already are if you do have endometriosis. Okay, now that disclaimer is aside, I can introduce you to Lucy. Lucy is a naturopath and women's health specialist who works in one of Australia's leading natural medicine clinics. She has been deep in the wellness industry for about 15 years and a practicing clinician for over 10. She's never thought that she would end up specializing in women's health, but overcoming her own menstrual issues and seeing firsthand how underserviced and under-recognized females' bodies are in the health system, research, and overarching culture, she is now dedicated to educating and empowering women about their bodies and offering natural solutions to complex problems. Hey, Lucy. Say hi to everyone too.
Hey everyone.
How are you going?
I'm well. I'm really well.
Good. So first of all, like, how did you start with naturopathy? Like, how did you, because we were just talking about how you were like, oh, the body is this amazing vehicle and everyone's so curious about it. Like, what was your transition? Like, was that you when you were quite young and you were like, became obsessed with the female body?
Yeah. Oh, that's a good question. No, to answer that part, no, I wasn't obsessed with the female body. I was obsessed with inquiring about things and figuring out how things work. I think I naturally have a mind for that. So I could have easily become a mechanic or something like that. But no,
you didn't.
But no, really, I think my interest was sparked when my mother was sick when I was young. So I took sort of an interest, and she used some alternative therapies and did a lot of meditation. We were vegetarian for a long time because she was diagnosed with breast cancer and fought that. So that was when I was very young. So I think that imprinted some interesting things to me. And then I went on a mixed journey through my 20s, as a lot of us do. And I was really lost for a time. And I went and had a massage with a practitioner. And he said to me, I think you need to be in the healing arts. I think you've got something.
Mm.
And that was enough to spark me to study. So I went, actually, yeah, I think that's true. I have this level of intuition. I could do something like this. I moved to Tasmania with my husband, or my husband now, and I studied massage. And so I just became obsessed with the anatomy and physiology of the body, and I just like loved it all. And it was during that learning that a naturopath came to visit as like a guest teacher, and she started drawing up this line of letter C's on the whiteboard, and it was the carbon chain. And she started talking about human nutrition. And I was like, oh my God. And it just sparked this different cerebral academic part of me. And so I became really interested in it and went down the path of studying and did a 4-year degree in health sciences. But amongst that was my own story, which was that I'd had a lot of menstrual issues when I was young. And as the story goes, wasn't given many answers and was hospitalized, put on lots of interesting drugs. No one really understood what was going on. And so part of that was like, how can I make sense of this? And how can I help others who might be in this situation as well? So it really wasn't until more recently that I specialized in women's health. When I was studying, I had no interest in women's health at all. Or not at all. I found it interesting, but it wasn't like my bag. It wasn't until I became a mother and things started shifting in my own health, and I started really recognizing some of the broken pieces of the science and our culture, that I started going, hey, this is enough to fire me up and make it a focus.
That's interesting because both forks in the road for you towards where you are now were both motherhood. In a way, seeing your mum get breast cancer and then being interested. And I sparked up. You probably saw me spark up when you said that, because my mum had breast cancer too. And I remember her, and I remember our whole family being kind of cursed with, lots and lots of cancer, which I don't think cursed is the right word. That is just a natural reality of the environment and the stress. But I remember being like, my God, is my mum going to die? And then I had this book and I became really obsessed with biology, specifically female biology, and being like, this is a problem and I need to be able to understand it. I can't solve it, but I need to understand what's going on, because people just tell me that people get sick and that's not right.
Yeah.
And I think you probably had a little bit of that too, where you were like, that's not true.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think I was really lucky because I was raised in an environment where we were very open-minded. And so it seemed like a natural progression to go into something like naturopathy. I definitely thought about becoming a medical doctor, and there was a part of me until I had kids that probably would have done that. I just don't really have the time now. But I'm really glad that I chose that path, because I do think it can encompass what you're talking about, with just like the how and the why. Naturopathic medicine is very rooted in that. When we understand those basics, the helping points and the interventions we can choose sort of naturally arise from that. So it's definitely sort of the right fit, I think, with what I was exposed to.
What happened in motherhood? What made you go, wait a second, I need to be in the woman's space? I'm very curious about that. Like, do you have an aversion to it when you were studying, or you just weren't interested in it? It just wasn't something that applied to you?
Yeah, it's an interesting thread, the way that the correlation between essentially myself healing, like healing my own relationship with my feminine, and how that was changed by becoming a mother. And so it was basically, if you were to graph out my process, my inner process with becoming at peace with my feminine form, and because so much of my imprinting was like, I almost died twice from my period, to put this into context.
Wow.
So you can naturally see how I had this like, oh, I don't know if being a woman's a very good idea. Like that, I was very young. So that was kind of some of the thoughts, right, which I've now picked apart and have healed so many of those wounds. But the trajectory of that, if you were to graph it, is, and my interest in it clinically, are the same. And so I became more at peace and going, oh, not only is this not a problem, to be fixed, motherhood really shifted that for me of going, holy moly, I'm capable of this. And my body is a wonderland. Uh, and various sexual awakenings, various all these other experiences around that made me go, oh wow, not only is this a problem to be fixed, this is a gift. And that's part of my mission now, to help women feel like that, because I have truly lived it where it's not a gift. It almost killed me. So yeah, like, it's enough to change it and make me passionate about it now.
So when you're relating to people in clinic, it would be a lot easier when someone's having a very, very hard time. I don't know, do you feel comfortable if I ask you what happened? And like what actually was happening when you were dying? Like if you almost died from your period, what does that mean?
Hemorrhaging, essentially. Yeah. So, and again, there's some really interesting, I could go into a whole other part around the metaphysical and spiritual reasons around this as well, which is a big part of my process. We're not going to kind of get into that today, but yeah, so the first time was when I was very young, when I first started menstruating. So I was 9. Yeah. And then the second time, so I had various hemorrhaging experiences throughout my teens and 20s. And then the second most extreme time, I think I was around about 27. And that was probably the worst. I had to have blood transfusions, iron transfusions, and was hospitalized for a long time. And no one could give me the answers until I went to see a qualified naturopath. And that was the real gateway to actually healing and actually understanding what was going on. So yet again, that fired up my passion. I was already studying at that point. Yeah, so that's kind of what happened.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. It's almost like your spirit was like, okay, we're going to maybe put you through this process so you come to where you might need to be. I mean, not to say that this is your final destination. You're going to be working as a naturopath and as a healer for your whole life. But that's crazy that you went through that experience. I'm sorry you went through that experience. It's very painful. But I think it's very good to see as well, like, you need the medical industry because of those situations. Because in that situation, you don't need a naturopath. You need a surgeon.
Absolutely.
You need people who know how to put in needles in the right places. You need people who know how to do blood transfusions.
Yeah.
But then you also need a naturopath to be like, okay, this is the root problem and this is how we can avoid this from happening.
Precisely.
I think the mistake that people make with endometriosis specifically, or any women's health, they go one way or the other without integrating two of them, which I know is something you're very, very passionate about. I'm very, very passionate about as well. We need both of them working in collaboration together.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And it's a huge passion point of mine for sure. Yeah. Again, because I've lived it, but I also see it day to day in my clinical work now, of the power of collaborative medicine and integrative medicine. And it does have to be like that. We just cut off too many options if we go one way hard or the other way hard. So I'm always encouraging that response. And I have a lot of good relationships with conventional medicine practitioners, because that's what we need to actually get the help that people deserve. Yeah.
So let's get into endo. So we're going to start with the basics. So what is endometriosis as a foundation? Like, give us a definition, and then we can possibly go into some symptoms, and then we'll build from there.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So endo as a condition is an inflammatory condition that is essentially where tissue from the uterus, so the endometrial tissue we call that, grows outside of the uterus. So we can find it all through the pelvic cavity. They're called lesions, they're endometrial lesions. And so they're little pockets of that tissue. And because it's the same tissue as what's in your uterus, it responds to hormones much the same as your uterus does. So it grows and thickens with the fluctuations of your monthly hormones. Mainly estrogen helps it to thicken. And then it sheds, much like when you have a
Where
period.
Does it shed?
Good question. It sheds into the pelvic, into the cavity. Yeah, so you end up having, we call them chocolate cysts. That's what, they're fondly named. It's not a fond condition at all. It's an awful condition. But you end up getting these little bits of dried blood around them when you can locate them in the cavity. And yes, they can bleed into the cavity. So that's kind of what's happening but obviously there's lots of other flow-on effects of that. So we find the lesions can be attached to different parts of other organs. So often they're around the ovary, often they're around the fallopian tubes. Sometimes they can be on the bowel or the bladder. I mean, there's been some documented cases of them being as high up into the thoracic
I've seen a
cavity.
documented case last night in someone's nose.
Amazing, right? Yeah, not a nice thing to have. And having nosebleeds every month, I imagine, or something similar, might be a symptom of that.
Is that a symptom of endometriosis?
It can.
Nosebleeds.
I have heard of that kind of case as well in the nose, and a woman going, "Oh, I have nosebleeds when I'm bleeding," and then did some investigative surgery and had a look. So that is not very common. I will just say that if you have nosebleeds, it's unlikely that it's that, but it could be. So get it investigated. But yeah, so that's kind of what's happening. And of course, as you can imagine, if that tissue is kind of leading into the space and it's attached to bits where it shouldn't be, it's going to cause some havoc and it's going to make everything really inflamed. The interesting part about how it's happening and what's happening is that we know that most women have this tissue growing in the body, right? Outside of, so there's some level of this being a normal phenomenon in the sense that there's endometrial tissue growing outside of the uterus. But what's interesting, and where the inflammatory and immune part comes into this, is that in healthy women, healthy female bodies, your immune system will just tidy it up and it's all good and you wouldn't even know. So most of us have these growths and the immune system goes and cleans it up and we're fine. So where it ticks over into diagnosable endometriosis is where we have this huge cascade of inflammation and something is happening in the immune system where it's not doing that. It's not able to clean it up, and potentially it's over responding and becoming super inflamed. So there's some level of dysregulation in the immune system that's making this worse.
So it's the immune system isn't cleaning it up, and the immune system is also reacting to it in an inflammatory nature. And so this causes all the symptoms.
Precisely.
Which is like urinary incontinence, but also at the same time, like maybe causing some like restriction in being able to have any bowel or urinary movements because the lesions are growing and inflaming and like kind of pressing up against tissues.
That can definitely happen. Yeah.
So the lesions are the reasons why women have pain during sex with endo, can't have bowel movements, and like even like walking, running, things like this might be also painful.
Absolutely. The main central diagnostic question is pain, or the main symptom is pain, for sure. And it can be that kind of funky pain. So women will come to me and go, I have, this is one of the other symptoms, and we'll get into how it affects the bowel. But if they're around the bowel, you can end up having really weird, funky poos around the time of your period, and it hurts. So if someone's telling me that, I'm thinking, that's a bit of a flag here. But pain is the biggest one. So usually pain around menstruation, can be pain outside different times of the month as well, but usually around the period. And it can often be pain that doesn't respond as well to painkillers. So if someone says to me, I have bad period pain, and I say, do you take some painkillers? Have you taken? Oh yeah, I take ibuprofen, Nurofen. Doesn't quite do anything. I'm thinking, okay, there's something else going on here. And so I'll go through the rest of the questions to kind of see what that might be. But pain.
What are those questions? Like, what are the diagnostic questions you're asking? Say, I'm in your clinic. What are you asking me to kind of rule out or rule in endo?
So probably the next biggest question is around gut health and bowel stuff. So 90% of women that have endo will also have some type of presentation in the gut. So usually that looks like IBS, constipation sometimes, funky poos that hurt, bloating, feeling unwell, maybe some food intolerances, but they haven't quite pinpointed what that is. Maybe they do better on a gluten-free diet. Maybe they do better on a low FODMAP diet. They've tried different things. So something like that makes me go, okay, yep, that sounds like there's a link there. So pain, that the gut involvement, and then I would be looking at other genotype factors. So and my mum had breast cancer. Oh, my auntie had ovarian cancer. Oh, there's these other estrogenic conditions, which we'll get into about the role of estrogen in this, and it being an inflammatory condition that's driven by hormones. So it's kind of got two parts to it. I think that's sometimes a misconception that hormones are the biggest part of it, and they're a huge part, but they're not the only part. So when we're talking estrogenic, sometimes that might mean a woman is overweight. So that would be another little tick. I'd be thinking, okay, hard to move weight. That might be an estrogenic thing here. Maybe she's had other estrogenic issues or had other diagnoses around that. And then things like, painful sex, painful poos. They're probably the biggest ones that I'd be looking at, that sort of genotype, the gut, and then what's happening in the pelvis.
So those are all the symptoms. How is it diagnosed? Like, how do you diagnose endo? Which I know could be tumultuous and painful.
It's really tricky, and that's part of the issue with women that have endo will tell you how bloody hard it is to get a diagnosis. And usually what I see clinically is women that have been through they've suffered with pain for years, sometimes decades, and they've never really got a clear diagnosis. And it is tricky to diagnose in a black and white diagnosis, let's say. So yes, there would be those set of symptoms that I would be looking for and that type of pain. But really, the gold standard is to have invasive surgery to actually have a look, to get eyes on what's happening. So when you go to a conventional medicine doctor, that's what they would say as well. We can't really see them on ultrasound. That would be like a step back from actually going in and having a look, which is that laparoscopy procedure, the invasive surgery procedure. It's only a keyhole surgery, so we can go in and they'll have a look, and they usually clean it up a little bit while they're in there.
Okay, let's break those things down. Okay, what is having a look? What is keyhole surgery, and what is cleaning it up?
Sure. So this is the gold standard, if you like, of getting a full-on black and white picture of what's happening in there, is to go to a hospital and have a laparoscopy, it's called. So this is the procedure where they use a small camera with some tools on the end, and they will make an incision in your tummy, in your pelvis, and they'll go in. This would be a gynecologist or surgeon, and they'll have a look around with their little camera, and it has the ability to cauterize or like burn off the cysts if they find them. And that's the best, that's the strongest way to see where they are, because for some women, a very common presentation is to have problems with fertility, and endo can be a huge hindrance in being able to fall pregnant because of where those lesions are. So I had a client recently who had been trying for over a year to get pregnant and didn't have any major obvious signs of endo, to be honest. So it can be quite insidious like that, can be tricky to find. But by elimination, we finally got to a point of going, okay, I think we need to do this. She had some other support with other conventional medicine doctors, went and had a laparoscopy, and they had a look and said, look, you do have endo, but it's not affecting your fallopian tubes and it's not affecting your ovary per se. So, but they did clear up what they have, and sometimes that can improve fertility outcomes. So that's what's happened in this particular case.
And she got pregnant?
No, we're not sure yet. We're only a couple of months after. So
I hope she does.
Yeah, same. Yeah, she's been waiting. They've been working really hard and doing all the other supportive measures, which is really important in a case like that. So that's kind of the main way. But one step back from that would be to have an ultrasound. Sometimes if the lesions are big, you will see them on an ultrasound, but even then it's not necessarily a definitive diagnosis. So it can be really hard to get the answers that you need. Yeah.
So it's you have all of those symptoms and you have to pretty much then work with a doctor. And how does someone go about getting this laparoscopy?
Yeah.
And what are the risk factors associated with this? Because I'm not actually sure this is you're saying gold standards, but you're doing air quotation marks. So I'm like, what is that?
Well, it's more just that it doesn't come without risks, right? Like you don't go into a hospital setting and have like someone poke something into you like that without there being risks. Now, I'm not at all saying don't go and have a laparoscopy if you need to do that to get a definitive diagnosis. But sometimes there are interventions you can do beforehand, probably under the advisement of an integrative doctor or a naturopathic doctor, something like that, that can help to reduce the pain, that can help to reduce the symptoms and manage things down for you. But I in no way want to say that it's a quick fix or an easy fix, because in my experience, endometriosis, it can take a very long time to fix it, or let's say fix it, but it can be something you end up having to manage before it's going to be completely gone or before you're symptom free.
So it's kind of like, instead of, I'm imagining almost endometriosis as dandelions growing in your garden, and it's kind of like thinking that you're just chopping off the head of the flower and thinking you've gotten rid of endometriosis, when really you have this whole root structure and it's quite proliferative. So what you're saying is you need to go from the root, find out like actually maybe caused this, what the, like, I don't know, manifestation of this in your body is, kind of go at the roots, and also do laparoscopy if that is something that that client wants to do.
Yeah,
and they would
absolutely.
find that useful, because I know I've heard story after story after story of women having like 3 or 4 laparoscopies,
and it keeps coming back.
And it keeps coming back because they're not actually doing the root cause stuff as well.
I see so much of that.
What's the risk with multiple laparoscopies?
So there is risks, because what we know about the lesions and what they like to attach to, they love to attach to scar tissue or anything that has like a nice bumpy surface, and they'll kind of latch
so you have a laparoscopy and you just get more and more and more. Oh, wow.
I've seen that before, where someone has had multiple surgeries. There comes a point where you go, okay, this isn't probably working. If you've had 2 procedures, maybe we shouldn't go in for a third. I mean, arguably, you shouldn't go in for the second, but every case has to be assessed differently. But yeah, exactly. So it actually increases the scar tissue risk, which can amplify the adhesions and make it worse. So yeah, coming back to that root cause, the laparoscopy can diagnose and go, yep, you definitely do, you definitely don't. Where is it? Blah, blah, blah. It can cauterize, it can get rid of some of the cysts, the little growths, and clear that up, but they're just going to come back if you're not really treating what's fueling that, which is the inflammation and the hormonal stuff. So you've got to come at those 2 pieces.
Awesome. And you were saying this before, and people say this with PCOS. They think that PCOS is a hormone-driven disorder, and it's not. It's a metabolic disorder that involves hormones. And you were saying before that the endo is not just a reproductive disorder. It isn't just driven by hormones. It's driven by multiple different factors.
Yeah.
And this is probably where we can go into what the root causes are, or what we think are the root causes, because the science we have is pretty inconclusive on endometriosis.
Yeah.
So you said that there were 4 supposed roots that you think might be, or at least has been useful in your practice for defining what these different types of endometriosis are.
Yeah, it is a really tricky one, because I want to kind of preface it by saying we don't really know. And I think there's a few reasons for that. 1, the research has a bit of a ways to go. 2, every individual is different. And 3, the nature of this condition probably means there's more than one factor. So like often in science or in this type of thinking, we want a nice, neat answer, and that doesn't happen very often. And even if we think we've got a nice, neat answer, it's probably not a nice, neat answer. So I can't give a nice, neat answer. But what we do know is that there's kind of, 4 main things or 4 main theories, and there's some research to back those up. The first one is retrograde menstruation. So that's
and so I was like, oh, this is the cause, and that was found in the 1920s or the 1930s. Okay, what is this true?
It's a good question. It's almost been debunked, I would say, as a theory, but the mechanism of that, or the understanding of basically what they were saying back then, and what the idea is that instead of the menstruation coming out the vagina down through that way, it's going up, retrograde.
And for those of you that don't know, the ovum is not physically connected to the fallopian tube. There is a small gap there.
Correct.
Right? So that's where that theory might be true, but it's not true, because like when
maybe it could come out through that part.
If there's too much blood in that area and it's not clearing properly out with gravity, and it's kind of going up, I mean, it might happen. Yeah. How has that been debunked?
Oh, now with more investigations, we've come up with other theories that seem to be more compelling and more understandable. So the second one of those would be microbial contamination, as how they're labeling it. So there's some really cool, really interesting research around the microbiome. Now, we all know that that's kind of blowing up, and there's some really cool stuff around that now. But one of the big things around that is that the pelvic cavity, or just like the spaces in between your organs, we used to think was a sterile space. It's not. And it's full of microbes. We are full of microbes. We're more microbes than we are ourselves, cellular count-wise. So there's this theory that the bacteria in the gut have some role to play here. So there's a certain, without going too far down that line, there's a type of toxin that our bacteria in the gut will secrete, LPS, like a lipopolysaccharide, and that has been found in endometrial lesions.
In high amounts.
In high amounts.
Okay.
So that makes us go, oh, what are you doing there? Is there some translocation thing happening here where there's bugs from the gut moving around and making this worse? Are they somehow carrying the endometrial tissue? That's sort of part and parcel of this dance. So we don't exactly know, but we know that there's a correlation there. And then when you map that against 90% of endo patients having gut symptoms, we know there's something happening here.
So I'm not sure if this is the right word for it, but perhaps a little bit of leaky gut going on here, like an opening of that not the endometrial lining, of opening up of the lining in the gut and allowing, almost pathogenic type microbiota into the pelvic region.
That's possible. So
Okay.
it kind of, that might be part of it. That kind of looks like that's part of it. And it's more about the metabolites of those bacteria that definitely seem to be leaking through. And clinically speaking, I see a lot of leaky gut in endo patients. So yes, that's a factor. So we know that might be at play. The other two kind of big things in terms of causes are, one's a minor thing. So there's a slight theory around possibly this tissue being put down in utero, like maybe there's some stem cell stuff happening here when we're developing. And then it's an epigenetic factor. So you might have that tissue kind of programmed, if you like, to be a thing in your family. There might be genetic factors there that cause that to happen. And then when you come into your hormonal life and you're menstruating and fluctuating with the hormones, activates it. And then there might be other external factors, toxins, food, etc.
So let's get into the nitty gritty of gut, because it's got a lot to do with it. And I feel like there's a few other things I'd like to say as well about that, because I have seen a little bit of data suggesting that when women get, they go overseas and they get a nasty bug, and then a year later and up to it, they get started this manifestation of endometriosis, and then they get diagnosed. And there's also these cases of women having multiple occurrences of yeast infections and UTIs.
Yeah.
And so this does speak to the whole gut flora of the area.
Yeah.
And the bowel is, of course, as you said before, is a reflection of that. So can we get into the nitty gritty of gut health?
Yeah, well, because it does play a huge role in endo and kind of all conditions. Like that's that old naturopathic adage of one of the base principles of that all disease begins in the gut. And I think that's now the research is catching up and kind of showing that that's true.
Didn't Aristotle say that?
Yeah, well, I think, and then it passed on to Galen and Hippocrates and all those forefathers of medicine. So the gut health is really important. It's interesting about the parasite connection and the things that upset the gut. That definitely can be something that can trigger things off. So again, it links into the immune part of it as well. If you have a parasite, your immune cells are going to be like amping up to fight that off. And that can discombobulate things potentially. But yeah, there's sort of the key components I think about are the upper gut and lower gut. When I'm talking about upper gut, I'm really more talking about liver hormone metabolism, which we've kind of touched on.
And the small intestine as well.
Yeah, exactly. And we sometimes see things like SIBO, so small intestinal bowel overgrowth is really common in women with endo. And that's where bugs from the lower gut kind of creep up where they shouldn't be in the small intestine. And that can be treated. There's certain herbs and things that can really help with that. But there are certain fibers. So I said before about the FODMAP diet. There are still other fibers. PHGG is one of my favorites, which is partially hydrolyzed guar gum.
Hot.
It's good stuff.
That you remembered that.
It's one of the safest fibers. So this is the thing about fibers in women with endo. Okay. So I'm talking about we need to get your bowels moving. We need to excrete all that.
You can't just take any fiber. Not all fibers are designed the same.
No.
Wow.
And you can put in your psyllium husk and you will flare up. You can put in lots of other fruits and veggies thinking you're doing all the right things, and that can also flare things up. So we have to be quite specific about it. PHGG is usually safe. I would say 90% of cases that I see.
What Whole Foods?
Most health food shops stock that now.
Oh, wow.
There's a lot of really good research on it. So it's a fiber. It actually mixes up tasteless. It's easy to take, all that kind of stuff. That's a really good one for feeding good bugs in the gut and sort of balancing things out. But number one, keeping your bowels moving, because that's hugely important. There's a huge link with the gut bacteria and how well we regulate estrogen as well. There's even a whole world of science around that now, around the estrobolome.
The estrobolome.
Estrobolome.
Estrobloom. Yeah, okay. Because that's what I usually say. I'm like, oh, am I saying it wrong?
Estrobolome is how we say it.
Estrobolome.
Yeah, so the bolome. So things like carrots, raw carrots with the skin on.
Oh my God, the raw carrot salad. Stop. All of this ancient Ayurvedic knowledge is just so perfect for not estrobloom. It's so perfect for endo.
Exactly.
That's fascinating.
Yep. So eat your carrots, wash them, don't peel them, eat them with the skin on. There's a special type of fiber that really helps to scrape things out and make sure you're getting all the estrogen out of the body. So the thing about estrogen and that recirculating and potentially flaring up endo is that your body packages it up really nicely and wants to get it out. But if it sits in the bowel and you're not pooping every day, or at least, once
it gets
or twice a day,
reabsorbed.
it gets reabsorbed.
Yep.
It becomes a whole problem. So you really do have to make sure that that's pushing through.
And I've seen some science that suggests that the estrogen that has been sitting in the gut and then is reabsorbed and runs throughout the body creates more damage. And there's different types of estrogen. So this new estrogen that has been produced from our ovum, I guess we should be saying, and multiple different parts of the body as well produce estrogen, are a different type. And the longer it stays around, the more fragmented it gets and the more damage it does. And it becomes quite inflammatory. Is this correct?
Exactly. Yep, that's right. So there's different types of estrogen and then the metabolites of estrogen. So your body is really trying to make it water soluble so you can wee it out, make it water soluble so you can poo it out. But during that process, it can turn into nastier forms of estrogen. And we know that estrogen is proliferative, which I mentioned earlier. So it's just going to make things grow. It just makes things grow and causes havoc a lot of the time.
Is this maybe why women who have endometriosis have really heavy, painful periods as well? Is because they have a huge amount of estrogen that's proliferating the endometrium?
Precisely. Okay. And that causes the clots and it causes the pain.
And is this maybe adding into the infertility aspect because estrogen is way higher than progesterone?
That's right.
And wow, interesting.
Yep. So you really do, whatever way you're looking at it, you do usually have to work on the gut, poop it out, wee it out, maybe look at things to help the liver actually package it up in the way that it should be so you can excrete it out. And you're going to see a pretty quick effect in terms of heaviness of bleed, pain with bleed, all of that kind of stuff.
Are there any other specific things that you'd recommend to women for gut health with endometriosis? You said magnesium before.
Yeah, magnesium.
What specific type of magnesium as well? Because there's 8 different types, and which one are you like, this is the one?
For endo clients, I will often use a combination of magnesium. So there's some products where you get a mixture, avoiding oxide, of course, because I think most of us would know that by now, but maybe you don't go and check your supplements because I don't know how many clients it still happens. You look at it and it's the crappy ones are full of oxide. I quite like any of the glycinates, magnesium glycinates, orotates, citrates, that kind of thing. But usually if you find a good product, you'll have those in. That can help with, if you are constipated and you're more on that side of things, magnesium will help. If you are stressed, it will help. We also just need magnesium for a lot of reactions in the liver. So when we're getting rid of that excess estrogen, there's a lot of enzyme reactions that need magnesium. Zinc is another really big one. Vitamin A is another big one. Zinc can be supplemented. Vitamin A you'll get in organ meats if you're up for eating organ meats.
So this is the other thing that I'd like to go into, because I've recommended to a plethora of my clients that they have organic grass-fed beef reproductive organs, desiccated reproductive organs, and there has been an immediate relief. Yeah. So what would you say, would you say you recommend that? And do you know any of the science behind that as well?
Well, some of it could probably come down to the vitamin A content and also the other mineral, like zinc is a big one in there as well. So vitamin A is important because for 2 reasons. One, it it helps to dampen down that histamine inflammatory response. The other one is we need it for something called secretory IgA, which is a marker we can test in the gut, which can lead to, basically, if you have low secretory IgA in the gut, it probably means that your immune lining of your gut system isn't working very well, and you've probably got some hyperpermeability or leaky gut. So that, again, is something we can test for. And vitamin A really helps that.
Okay, so the 4 are microbial, and then
the retrograde menstruation, which we can kind of put to the side.
Okay.
But it's something around that. We know the tissue's going up instead of down.
Yeah.
So that's one. The microbial translocation, contamination kind of theory.
From bacterial
in the gut.
toxin in the gut, moving into the pelvic region.
Correct.
Right.
Toxins in the environment really messing things up. And then the stem cell kind of epigenetic genotype.
And is that a genetic thing? Whereas the mum might have some type of gene that she's passed on to her child, and then that doesn't necessarily mean that gene is going to be expressed.
Correct.
That gene is born into an environment where that gene has been allowed to be expressed.
Yeah, okay. Absolutely. And if the environment's right and it's ripe and ready, you will switch on that gene. Now, an interesting point just on that is that, so yes, we see patterns of these types of conditions in families, like usually in your maternal line. So that's kind of there. So there is some type of genotype that fits the mold, if you like, of what endo is. But more interestingly, or more clinically relevant, is around your estrogen metabolism genetics, and that's something that we can test for, and that's something that I do often look at in a woman that presents with endo.
How do you test that? Because estrogen metabolism for the most part happens in the liver.
Yeah.
Yep. So how do you test that?
So we're looking at genetic polymorphisms in that case. Okay. So there's a couple of big ones that stand out, that certain enzymes that we need to process our hormones correctly. So one of those is the COMT enzyme. The MTHFR enzyme is a big role there. PEMT, there's a few of them that we can test for. They're called SNPs, or SNPs, we call them for short. And they're things that can help to give us a picture. It doesn't mean it's like a hard and fast, you're going to have problems forever detoxifying, but it does give us some signposts of where we might direct treatment and intervention. Yeah. And those things do follow down the genetic line.
That's so fascinating, because what you were saying before, this is not a reproductive, or this isn't just a hormonal disorder. This is a disorder that's driven by hormones. But for the most part, it's driven by excess estrogen, which might be we're overproducing estrogen, or what you're saying might be not that case. It might be that we are just not getting rid of it out of the system effectively enough, and it's just staying in the blood system.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's the main thing we see for sure, is that it's a sluggish metabolism, we might say, or a
sluggish liver.
Yeah, exactly. A compromised system. And there's lots of different parts to that. So it's not just all about the liver. It's also about how we get it out of the body. So you have to be pooping well, and you have to be urinating well, and sweating doesn't hurt as well, to try and move these hormones through your body, particularly estrogen, and get them out. There's also different metabolites of estrogen, but we don't need to go into that. But some of those put you at higher risk for other growths. That's where we start looking at cancer risk, etc. But endo, alongside things like fibroids and other kind of growths, are very estrogen dominant type conditions. So I would absolutely be looking at making sure you're clearing those hormones properly, and getting them out of the body.
Which I can imagine, if you have endometriosis and you already have a down gut, that's so hard. That is so hard, that your liver is a little bit sluggish and it's not doing what it's supposed to be doing. And then if it is doing what it's supposed to be doing, your gut isn't actually allowing you to pass the estrogen out of your digestive tract. So now I understand, because people want a black and white answer for endometriosis, and it's so complex. And now I understand at a deeper level why we absolutely can't do that, because it is such a complex disorder. We don't actually fully have good science on this yet, and it's a little bit bitsy. So really what you're trying to do is trying to get lots of different elements of what that individual person is showing, and going, okay, this might be it.
Yeah, if there was ever a condition to use individual-based medicine, this would be it. And also holistic medicine, where we can account for that complexity. So this is where obviously I'm a bit biased because I'm a naturopathic medicine practitioner, but the complexity and mindset that is required to get real results, you need to look and account for lots of different parts of the puzzle.
Yes. Okay. So it's not just, and I think that's why there's no hard and fast rules with endo. You have to just go, it is a case by case. And that's not a very sexy thing to say. It's not very clickbaity. It is like, it's not simple. It's just going, okay, what is your body looking like? And I think that's one of my mentors actually said when I was fresh out of, uni, and I had all these statistics in my head, and I remember her sitting me down, and she was like, for fuck's sake, Sarah, no one's the statistics. Yep. You're not allowed to be in this clinic and be functioning underneath me and be looking at everyone as a statistic and giving them the same treatment. You have to look at them individually. And I was like, but that's so tiring. And she was like, welcome to being a health practitioner.
Yeah, we say treat the person, not the pathology.
Yes.
Right. So yes, but that said, there are these, we can break it down and we can kind of make sense of it. So we know some of those causes, but there's easy enough treatments to intervene with those two branches of inflammation and hormones. So there's things that can be done.
So what can you do? We're just saying there's no hard and fast rules, but what are some general things that always help with women with endo?
Like intervention wise in terms of medicines. Yep. Okay. So again, coming back to those two branches. So we can start with the inflammatory part. So there's definitely a lot of interventions that we can do to reduce inflammation. Two of the biggest medicines there that have a lot of research on them are fish oil. So omega-3 fatty acids with a high EPA content will help to reduce pain significantly. There's some really good research around that. The second one would be curcumin or turmeric. You have to have the right type of curcumin for it to be available enough to absorb and actually be anti-inflammatory.
Is that with the black pepper in it as well? Is that correct?
Yeah. No, it's just that, it's curious because I've worked in many different settings in the wellness industry for about 15 years, and it's just funny to see the way people talk about it. Because I was there when when turmeric hit the shelves and the black pepper thing and all of that. So yes, so there's two different. I categorize them as two different types. You can take turmeric with black pepper, and it will have a really good effect on the gut. And yes, black pepper will help it absorb a little bit. But really, if you want what the research is done on mainly in terms of full-blown anti-inflammatory effect, it's not just anti-inflammatory. Curcumin is also excellent for estrogen detoxification. So it has an effect on the liver and some of those enzymes that we require. It's also anti-proliferative and cancer protective, which can be important in these kinds of cases. And for that, you need curcumin, which is a different chemical structure that is extracted from the turmeric root.
Curcumin is the pigment that makes turmeric orange,
it's part of it. And there's curcuminoids are one of the active components, but we now can standardize those. There's various different brands and different ways of getting them. I would definitely encourage you to talk to a practitioner to get the right one. But that's one of the ones that has a lot of research.
What's your favorite one?
I use a brand called Orthoplex, and they do one called Clinical Lipids of Omega-3. It's curcumina. On the name now, but curcumin in that brand is excellent. Okay,
awesome. So and then NAC. You were saying NAC as well, which is never know how to say it.
N-acetylcysteine.
Yeah, there you go.
So N-acetylcysteine also has a lot of really awesome research on it. It's a governing antioxidant, so it helps to mop things up throughout the body, and it really helps with that liver pathway as well. And there's some really good research specifically around NAC and fertility outcomes with endo. There's a great study actually that was done, I think, in 2013 in Italy, where women actually dropped out of the study because they had zero pain and they fell pregnant naturally. And
there's amazing studies happening in Italy, because every time I find a really gold standard great study that's done well for women, it's always in Italy. Italy.
Good research.
Every single time. Most of the research I found on squirting actually is Italian.
That's interesting. Wow, good on them.
Really good on them.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So you said before as well that diet is the most important intervention for this. Would it be your standardized anti-inflammatory diet, and then with a few different, changes specifically for that person?
Yeah. So the dietary stuff is interesting because generally, like I said before, most women will have bloating, maybe weird farts, maybe weird poos, stuff's not right, indigestion. It's usually lower gut kind of stuff. Um, Most women that have endo will do better on a low FODMAP diet, which tells us a lot about the fermentable sugars. So a FODMAP is like a fermentable sugar in a food. And by reducing those, we reduce that over proliferation of bacteria in the gut, and that can cause a lot of that gas buildup and pain. Yeah, so low FODMAP can be good for a time, but it's definitely not the sort of thing that you would want to be on for a long time. But it can significantly reduce pain. Gluten and A1 casein are the other two big ones here.
A1 casein is dairy, ladies.
Dairy, sorry, yes. Shop talk. Yeah, so dairy, yep. Can be a real pro-inflammatory factor. Can also be part of increasing histamine, which can also be a factor in these cases.
Which plays into the autoimmunity aspect of this, which we haven't touched on, which I would like to touch on a little bit.
So yeah, the autoimmune part of this is really interesting, and I think the research around that is really only just beginning, because we can't strictly put endo in the category of autoimmune. But what we do know is that it is a condition that around immune dysregulation is probably a better way of putting it. So it's not like directly the body attacking itself in a sense, which is how we categorize an autoimmune condition, but there are inflammatory factors that are very similar to an autoimmune condition. And there's things we can do to kind of tone the immune system and help it work better and be less inflamed, and which cuts down the pain and all the symptoms associated with that. Yeah.
And so that's where like FODMAP would be good for a period of time.
Precisely.
Because you're decreasing the amount of fermentable sugars in the gut. And so you're allowing, I know, good and bad bacteria. I don't actually like saying those things. There's no such thing. But we have an overgrowth of like bad bacteria almost, and we're stopping that from being fed. Yeah, and so we're healing the gut lining. Yeah. So that's what all of these different things are doing. So it's almost like these supplements are acting on all the different systems that endometriosis is being fed by, but in different ways.
Precisely. And again, that's where natural medicines have a lot more to offer. We have a lot of tools in the toolkit, and each ingredient or each supplement will probably have more than just one action. So like I mentioned, the curcumin isn't just good for reducing inflammation, it's minimizing it and its power and its beauty. It's actually really great for the liver. I mean, traditionally in herbal medicine, turmeric is a cholagogue. It helps for the liver, it helps for digestion. And it also is immune regulating, if you like. So it really helps to tone that. So the more you take, yes, your symptoms are going to go down. Yes, your pain's going to become reduced, but you're also gently working on those underlying causes.
So a FODMAP diet, and then maybe getting rid of dairy and gluten for a period of time.
Yeah.
And I'm aware that that isn't always the case in every single woman, because again, this is such an individualized disease.
Yeah.
So what would you do? Ideally, you would put someone on a FODMAP diet and then also get rid of A1 casein, so A1 dairy and gluten at the same time, and then kind of reintroduce things slowly?
Yeah, that's usually the way it goes. Sometimes, so dairy and gluten are probably going to be the first two, and then we would look at what you can tolerate and what you can't. Now, most women already know that foods are flaring up their gut, and they still eat them. I see that constantly where they're like, I eat this bread, or I eat this thing, or have this bit of fruit or whatever it might be, and it does no good for me. Like, I'll sit down and have that cheese platter and I feel shit the next day. And I'm like, do you still do that? Yes, I do. So a lot of it is about coaching women to listen to their bodies in a different way, and then actually heed the messages that their bodies are giving them. And it doesn't mean that you have to live like that forever, but you do need to reduce the assault, in a sense, is kind of how I term it. You have to wipe the slate clean for a little while. And it is best to do that with a practitioner, I think, because then you can slowly bring in certain foods that you can tolerate, keeping in mind while we're reducing all those aggravating factors, we also should be healing and lining the gut and making sure that the gut is working well. So there's lots of tools for that too. So usually my treatment plan would have some symptomatic relief, like the curcumin, the omega-3s and the NAC, and then we might do some gut healing work, which might be other treatments as well, and maybe some testing too that can help to kind of clarify the picture for the individual. And then we can look at hormones.
Yeah.
So there's kind of those 3 areas that you might look at treating.
What are some immediate things? Because I know if I was coming into your clinic and I was experiencing extreme amounts of pain, and you said, okay, go and get all of these supplements and and change your diet. I'm like, okay, cool. That's going to be a long-term thing, but I'm in pain right now. I have symptoms right now. Like, what are some things that help? Say, let's break it down to the main symptoms. What are some things that help immediately with constipation? What are some things that help immediately with pain?
Yep.
And other things that you see constantly in clinic. What do you think are some almost more natural?
Yeah.
But also would like to also ask you about your perspectives on what the medical system actually prescribes for endometriosis, because I'm not sure actually if they prescribe any type of pharmaceutical drugs. I know with PCOS, metformin is always prescribed. And that speaks to the metabolic disease aspect of PCOS. But because this is such a fragmented disease, like, are there any things that are prescribed? And what are some immediate things that you would recommend can help?
So, well, from a conventional medicine perspective, there's not a whole lot that can be done apart from painkillers, and hardcore painkillers. So a lot of clients will come to me and they are on opioid-based or codeine-based heavy painkillers, which you just use every month, which isn't ideal. And the other aim of treatment is to blanket the menstrual cycle. So oral contraceptive pill, etc. And the old adage or advice was just get pregnant and you'll fix it all.
I've heard this before, just
So
stay pregnant. And it's like, that is not a solution.
Not a solution. And also can be incredibly frustrating and upsetting and sad, because a lot of these women are actually desperately trying to get pregnant. And it's not that simple. And we know that now. So I think that that's less said.
I can't imagine how fucking upset I'd be sitting across from my doctor and he's just like, oh, like, just get pregnant. It's like, I'm trying.
I'm really trying. I was like going at it and it's not happening here. Yeah, exactly. So that I see that a lot. But in terms of pain, number one would be the fish oil. I've seen that work within a month for sure in terms of symptoms and pain. There are other elements there. So yes, the curcumin, but you can do other herbal medicine potentially. Things like boswellia, things like PEA sometimes can help. So there's other things you can do that have quite quick symptomatic relief for pain. What was your other part of the question?
That was, you answered both of them. And then topical as well. I've seen some things online about castor oil packs.
Yeah.
Like, do you have something to say about that?
Definitely. Yeah. That's the next bit to go to for sure. So castor oil packs are amazing. It is really important because I think a lot of the time topical things are put to the side and we just are happy to chug down heaps of supplements and stuff. But so yeah, castor oil packs are great. You can put other oils and things potentially in the castor oil packs. So frankincense, boswellia. So we actually use boswellia as a herbal medicine. It's a great anti-inflammatory. And as it's essential oil, if you're into essential oils, frankincense is its other name. So you have to have really good quality, obviously, if you're into essentials. Rubbing that with a lotion or adding it to your castor oil pack. It's pretty easy to get instructions for a castor oil pack. You can wear it overnight or at least an hour or so, especially around the time of pain, and that will have a localized effect, and it does help to reduce that inflammation for sure.
Do you mind quickly explaining what a castor oil pack is?
Sure. So castor oil is it's a type of oil that's actually used a lot in Ayurveda and Ayurvedic medicine. And essentially what you do is get a towel or a flannel. It needs to be like a grippy type of material is definitely the best, and you soak it in castor oil. Now, a lot of people remember castor oil if you're like, some people would use it internally for constipation. Yeah. So like the old grandma might have.
Would you recommend that?
I do not recommend.
Okay, good.
Yeah. No, it's going to make things a lot worse. There's lots we can do for constipation, which is a part of this as well. A lot of the time, magnesium's a really big one here, and in general as a treatment. So you soak it and you apply it to the tummy area, and you usually can get really messy. So you have to kind of wrap yourself in a towel or some plastic wrap or something like that to kind of hold it in. And look, it's one of those ones that's a real naturopathic old-time remedy, but all these things add up together to really help to reduce. And women will tell you, yes, that helped during my period pain.
Yeah, and I've met women who have put castor oil packs on their breasts and had breast fibroids completely disappear. I've heard stories about like scar tissue completely healing with castor oil packs. I think they're really amazing. And I think, it's a multidisciplinary approach. And I think it's really interesting what you said before, that like modern medicine doesn't have anything. Yeah. There's no drug. there's only this surgery and it only cuts the top.
Yeah, it's more symptomatic relief, I guess, is what you would classify that at. It's not coming at the root.
Yeah. So really, ultimately what I'm thinking here is that the only choice that women with endometriosis has is a natural route, because it doesn't seem like the pharmacological side of our modern medicine world has any answers right now. It's only surgery.
Yeah. And look, I back to the get pregnant, it'll fix it thing. I will say I have seen cases where women have had a laparoscopy, they've managed to fall pregnant, and it does change the terrain of the immune system slightly, and it does, because you're not fluctuating with hormones when you're pregnant, you just kind of up and you stay up with progesterone and estrogen. You don't have any pain, you don't have any period pain because you're not having a period for 9 months, and that might last for a couple of months, maybe a year, maybe 2 after you've had a child, but in most cases it comes back. So yeah, I have seen cases like that where the modern medicine works in a sense, gets you pregnant and you reduce your symptoms afterwards, but it tends to come back.
So what does that actually mean though? So what do women's lives look like, post menopause if they've had endometriosis? Do they have a harder time with menopause? Do we have any data on this? I haven't even thought about that.
Yeah, good question. I think what it brings us to is the hormonal part of it. And so if you have endo, it's likely you have issues with estrogen metabolism. And there's other stuff happening in there, gene stuff. And so, yes, that can inform or predict a little bit about what your risk factors might be when you come into perimenopause and menopause. Now, the other major part of this, which we haven't really touched on, is stress and the effect on stress and inflammation. Now, both stress and inflammation in my book get bandied around, those terms, and we don't really think about what's happening in that process. So just to clarify, like inflammation, because we've said it probably a trillion times already, when we talk about inflammation, it's your immune cells are in control of inflammation. So when we're talking about inflammation, we're talking about immune cells, we're talking about immune regulation. And similarly with stress, we bandy that around, and there's so many different types of stress. There's good stress, there's bad stress, but we know chronic elevated stress, which unfortunately in our modern world is a very real reality for most women, that plays a huge role. And there's an overlap with stress and inflammation.
Yeah, so stress is the nervous system that affects the immune system in a way.
Correct.
Yeah, so it's like we're having a constantly high, low, and hormonally as well, cortisol, noradrenaline, adrenaline, right?
Exactly.
Which all have, different interplays with the amounts and how they're activated. I mean, the whole body system, you can't talk about stress and inflammation as like a topical, like this is where it is and this is how it works. It's because it works differently throughout the whole body. But yeah, I think what I'd like to tell everyone, that stress is like activated by your nervous system, and then it has a flow and effect from your endocrine, which is your hormonal system, and then your inflammatory, or not your inflammatory, your immune system, which is a system throughout your body, which you can't really locate the immune system. That's the thing.
And there's so many different types of cells that do all this awesome work in the background, but they can get discombobulated. That's definitely something that happens, and that usually happens under chronic stress or under inflammation that's lasted for a long time. And this is the thing about cortisol and stress and everything, we're in these in these loops. So it's all well and good to say, I had a really hard time a few years ago. I was really stressed and it peaked all this inflammation. I often hear that from women. And then they're like, but I'm okay now, that stress has passed. But what happens is we get caught in these loops, and the adrenals are just cranking up that cortisol, and they just keep going.
It's like your stress set point is set a little bit higher, and it hasn't actually come back down. So that's going into a different element of endometriosis, because you can do the supplements, you can do the diet, you can do the laparoscopy, you could do all of this stuff. But what are we doing about the central nervous system? Like, what do you recommend women do for stress reduction?
Yeah, well, there's lots and lots of things we need to do. Sorry, my brain almost went on a tangent around like what the culture needs to do to help women to reduce their stress,
please.
Which is a whole factor. I'll just touch on it because it's a passion point for me. But I do so often see women on their own going, I need to fix myself. There's something happening here. And what we do is fleece out, okay, what are your main stressors? Tell me what you what's going on in your life. And so often it's not necessarily them that are running that stress program. It's the expectations that we have on how much we should be producing, how much money we should be making, how present we need to be with our kids, etc., etc., etc.
You need to be hot. You need to be a mum. You need to have a great job. You need to be in love with your husband. You need to be like the most tantrika, gorgeous sex lady ever.
Yep.
You also need to wake up at 6 a.m. every single morning and work out.
Yeah.
And you also need to...
exercise is really important. Otherwise, you're going to get fat and you're going to get more endo and it's going to be this whole thing.
Yeah. The expectations we put on women. And the fact that women think that they need to do these things alone, it always makes me so sad.
Yeah.
And I think there is a community aspect to endometriosis. Like I always almost find that women who have huge amounts of hormonal problems are isolated.
Oh, yeah. There's a community aspect to all women's health.
Yeah.
We don't take care of our women, and that's a whole separate podcast. So stress is a big one. But in terms of practical solutions for reducing stress, breath work, mindfulness, gentle stretching and yoga, pull back from your hectic, high intensity exercise.
Because that's activating more cortisol and it's activating your adrenals. So just for a moment, even though I think it might be scary for people with endometriosis have a hard time losing weight.
Yeah.
I almost always say, like, back off from the exercise regime that you're having going on. That's really, really hectic. And they lose weight.
Right.
Because their cortisol's not so high. They're not bloated and they're not like retenting all of this water.
I see it time and time again. And it's awesome when they come back and go, oh, and I'm like, how we've been 6 months in or 3 months in. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes a few months. And then they go, oh, I'm losing weight and I'm doing my yin yoga and I'm taking these anti-inflammatory supplements and my tummy's never been flatter.
I've never done less and I've never been hotter. Right. It's like, welcome to being a woman. Less is more.
Right. It's the antithesis of what we've been told so often in our culture. So, yeah, we need to reframe all of that. But, yeah, we need to be taking our nervous systems more we need to be calm and nurturing and building that safety within our nervous system. For every person, that's going to be different, what works for you. But there's a lot of tools out there. And thankfully, we're talking about it more. So there's more information and more resources and probably a class, a practitioner, a facilitator near you that's doing something that can help you.
Which can go into the spirituality aspect of this, because I don't think it's just like genetic or you had this infection at some point and it has manifested this, or it's the inflammation or it's the stress. I think there is a definite part of this that is spiritual and metaphysical. And would you be open to talking about that? And like, what are some things that you see with endometriosis? Because I've heard people say that, like, with autoimmunity, there is a part of the spirit that is self-destructive.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you could overlay that onto endometriosis, or maybe you could. Like, what is a thing that you like have thought about the metaphysicality of endometriosis?
Yeah, I've thought about it a bit. It's interesting. It is a really interesting question because I'd like to think about it more probably. I think with any inflammatory condition where that's a major feature, like it is in endo, I think there is an element of repression potentially, and also anything that affects the female reproductive system is going to have an overlap with your own internal balance of your masculine and feminine energy. And I think that should be looked at for sure. And I think that's for everyone to kind of go into deeper on their own path and maybe get some support around that. But I don't think it's a coincidence that through this era that we're living in, of, the capitalism, push harder, productive, yang oriented, energetically, we're living through a very yang time and it's tipping over now. We're seeing that through the amazing work you do and all the other people out there doing great stuff, because we're awakening and understanding the feminine essence in a different way, and not just understanding it in our brain, but actually embodying those principles in a different way, which butts up against so much of the cultural things. But on a metaphysical and energetic level, we have to heal our womb, we have to heal our feminine, we have to listen to her because she's screaming and she's getting all inflamed and upset.
She's going to talk to you and talk to you. She's going to whisper and then she's going to talk at a normal level and then she's going to yell and then she's going to fucking scream. And then if you don't listen to her, she's going to be like, okay, you're not listening to me.
Right.
Let me show you that you're not listening to me.
Yeah. But what I don't want people to take away from that or that comment is that you're also doing that wrong. right? Because that's something I also see all these, oh, I'm trying my best and I'm doing all the things and I'm doing my breath work and I'm doing this and doing that. You need a combination approach, number one. You need a good practitioner or a team of people because you can't do it alone.
And that's the thing, women are trying to do this alone.
Don't do it alone.
Yeah.
You don't need to do it alone. Be honest. And if your practitioner says to you, oh, and now you've got a list of 10 other million things that you need to do, it's the wrong practitioner. Mm-hmm. Find someone who's compassionate and gentle and can meet you where you're at and guide you instead of going, oh, you just have to do this. That's it. See you later.
And I don't want anyone to think what I'm saying and internalize it as like I'm doing something wrong. Because I think a lot of the time, whenever we talk about women's health, we have to be very mindful about the communication we have. And I think I'm a very like straight edge. no, like I don't really butt around it. And I think people misunderstand what I'm trying to communicate a lot of the time. It's no one's fault. It's no one's fault you have endometriosis. It's not your fault.
Totally.
You live in a culture that has separated you from your feminine, and you are a result of the culture you've been living in. The fact that you feel disconnected from your feminine energy and the fact that you have something like endometriosis is not your fault.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I guess I was just touching on what I see women go, oh, and now I have to add all this self-care and I don't have the time and it's all a bit much.
Add one thing at a time. Add one supplement a week.
Yeah.
Like just one day a week, just do yin yoga instead of going and doing high intensity interval training, just like one thing at a time. And then eventually, 6 months, your whole lifestyle will be very, very different. You've made this slow transition into a new lifestyle because essentially that's what we want to be doing.
We want to build sustainable change. None of this is about quick fix, although you can get symptomatic relief within a month or two. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. But it's about long-term sustainable lifestyle change.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. Is there anything you'd like to say in the closing?
Look, just to let women know that there's help, there's help and there's hope, and it's not as confusing if you have someone that can help guide you through these things. Thank you. Thanks for letting me be here and for sharing all this good information. Hopefully it touches the people it needs to touch.
Awesome. Where can people find you?
I'm on Instagram, Lucy St. Jack. I've got my website. If you're interested in a session, you can book there, but my clinic is pretty full at the moment. And I'm also doing some guest teaching and things next year. So I've got some exciting projects there.
And we will have you on to talk about that because that's really exciting what you're going to be doing with that space. I'll probably have you on really soon to talk about that actually.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sarah.
Yay.
Bye.